Hello, my name is Amanda Martin. I am a graduate of Coker College, now Coker University. I have a bachelor's of criminology, or bachelor's in criminology, bachelor's in sociology. I was two classes short of having a minor in psychology, but decided not to wait around to take the two classes over the summer and graduate. I was tired, wanted to get out of college. I went back to school at 29, so I worked full time, was raising my two children full time, and I needed out. So, with that being said, I am currently in my master's for criminal and social justice policy. This is my final project. I've never done a video before. This is probably the third time that I've done this. Intentions of being in the program. My intention was to get my master's degree in criminology, and apparently they changed it from master's in criminology to master's in criminal justice policy and social justice policy, I believe the year that I started. That was a little bit of a shock, especially when we got to the policy papers and classes, because it is not my strong suit. I did not do well in those particular classes. It's very difficult for me to understand certain things without it being literal. And I need my directions 100% literal. I'm a very literal person, and I have very high anxiety. And if I don't know exactly what I'm doing, my anxiety heightens. Then I get all discombobulated, and it makes it worse for me to understand, which is why I did all the questions, and I appreciate the feedback. My intentions of being in the program was not only to get my master's and further my education, but I'd like to teach college level criminology. I have the sociology and criminology degrees, but I prefer criminology. I prefer understanding the thinking and the why and the theories behind criminal thinking and behavior versus, it's just me, sociology, understanding why somebody does what they do, and just like with the psychology, making excuses for them. I know you're a sociology major, sorry. I just prefer the commit a crime, this is why a person committed the crime, and this is the punishment for the crime. What I've learned about myself is 15 months does not seem like a long time, but it is a long time when you go through school straight through. The break that we had at Christmas, I had just started my job back at the Department of Social Services and had to go back through 6 weeks of training, which was like school. I had to go through school for 6 weeks. So my only break, I was in school still. When I started the program, I don't know why I didn't realize this, but there are no breaks. There is no spring break. There is no summer break. There's not even a day of a break. You go most of the time till Saturday and start again on Monday. I've learned that I'm not always right. I have learned that having a master's degree makes you no smarter than having a bachelor's degree, having a high school diploma. I think education is important. I find that it makes you well-rounded, more tolerant. You learn so much about yourself and other people. But as far as intelligence or being smart, it does nothing for you. I've learned that I've made mistakes in this program, and I'm usually a good student. I was a very good student in my bachelor's and my associate's degree. I went for my associates in paralegal studies, then transferred to what was then Coker College to do my degrees in criminology and sociology. And I realized that you have to take feedback. You cannot always be right. Constructive criticism. That not everything comes easy, and I did very well in school, making A's and B's. In my undergrad, I made great grades until my dad got sick and I had to drop classes and took F's for it. Then when he passed away, I went back and got my degrees. I realized that you have to keep a B in this class or this program, and honestly, some of them, it was close. It was really close. I learned that it's hard to balance a stressful profession and online school. I was not planning on going to an online school or online classes when I applied at Coker. I thought that they were at Coker, and I was willing to drive the hour to Coker. I do not do well with online classes. I like sitting in a classroom, especially around table, as Coker does, and being able to see my professor and being able to ask questions. I find that I learn better with the professor at the front of the room explaining, because you don't have to go through the emails, and you can get your point across better verbally than you can through an email, text message, whatever the case may be. And because I work during the day and live an hour away, I couldn't just pop in for office hours to ask questions. I've learned that I want to go for my doctorate, but I question myself. I question, can I do it? It's a 3-year program, at least the program that with the school that I have finally chosen, that if I do go ahead with a doctoral program, that that is their time limit, 3 years. What I've learned from the program, I have learned that policy for me is difficult, which amazes me because personality tests, and I've taken actual personality tests with psychology being my minor, and always having a love for the law, even as a child, that policy is not as easy as one would think it would be. My intentions from get-go was to go to law school. I wanted to finish my bachelor's degree, take the LSATs, go law school. I ran out of steam. I'm tired. Raising 2 children by myself, going to school and working full-time, burnt me out. And then being a profession that will burn you out leaves little energy for something as constructive and structured as law school. Then I realized, going through the policy classes with you, Dr. Malone, that it would take a lot, because that is what law school is policy. It is knowing and learning policy. And I did not do too well with my policy class. I feel like I did subpar, not purposely, just the understanding of it. Just as with this paper was probably the hardest that I've had to do. Even though I picked a broad subject, took your feedback and intertwined it with religion and morality and politicians, which to me all intertwine, because without religion, we wouldn't have morality. Without morality and religion, politicians wouldn't have a soapbox to stand on to preach with. I've learned that it's important to know your subject. Undergrad's a little different. Master's is, You're becoming a master of a subject, and you need to know it. And it's when you've gone a few years in between undergrad to grad school, you forget a lot, especially when you don't work in the field of your degree, and I don't. My project is on abortion, and I'd like to say it's abortion has always been highly controversial. For centuries, I thought for decades, but it has been for centuries. It has been since the 1800s when the first law was enacted in Connecticut that abortion policy has been around. And to this day, we have states in the United States of America in the year 2019 wanting to change state law on abortion. It's very complex. In 1840, I learned that 10 out of the 26 states, obviously that was before 1840, was before we had 50 states, had some kind of restriction against abortion, one way or another. I learned in the Great Depression, 500,000 abortions were performed. That was a time when people were giving their children away, selling their children, putting their children in orphanages because they could not feed their families. And these are back alley abortions being performed on women. And we know that causes disfigured children if they survive. And women died. Coat hanger abortions, as they like to call it. Women died. In the 1950s, the government cracked down on abortions. Thank goodness for 1960 when the birth control pill came out. But that still was controversial because back then, good girls didn't do such things, and you didn't need protection because you were to be married first. Back before I was born in 1976, even then, it was still controversial for an unmarried woman to have a child, and girls were sent off to their aunt's house to give birth, and the baby was forcibly put up for adoption or raised as a sister to the mother. So we've come a long way, but we still apparently have way more ways to go. 1970, Hawaii became the first state to repeal the abortion law. And finally, 1973 comes along. 1973, everybody knows Roe versus Wade. The story of Roe versus Wade, even if you don't know the details of Roe versus Wade, you know that this is a landmark case that allowed a woman to freely choose abortion because it was covered under the Privacy Act of the 14th Amendment. That is what the U.S. Supreme Court stated. Abortion is not particularly mentioned in the 14th Amendment, but we know that the Supreme Court states that abortion is covered under the Privacy Act of the 14th Amendment to protect a woman's right to have an abortion. In the year 2000, the government approved the abortion pill. In 2007, Supreme Court rules that partial birth abortion ban act is constitutional. 2019, we have people in 2019, mostly southern states. Actually, Missouri is Midwest, but Kentucky, Midwest, but for the most part, southern states amending their abortion laws within their state. Some go as far as no abortion, period, regardless of rape or incest. Some are going to just rape and incest. We have to see where the Supreme Court is going to go on this, and if we're actually going to have somebody fight this, because I'm a Christian. I am a moderate Republican, and I cannot believe in the year 2019 that we are having to deal with this. A woman's right to her body is her right. I'm not talking about a second trimester viable child. that can live outside the womb. I'm not talking about a third trimester abortion. I am talking about a first trimester abortion. Yes, there is a heartbeat most of the time when a woman finds out that she's pregnant, but I'm not talking about aborting a life or a fetus, a child, however you want to put it, that is viable outside the womb. There are many reasons to have an abortion, and that's when we get into the morality. People's morality usually comes from religion, right and wrong. What does the Bible say? What does the Quran say? What does the Torah say? Basically, some biblical holy book that tells a group of persons that believe in a man-made religion, I am one of them, that this is wrong to do. Although not in any of the major religions does it specifically say abortion is a sin. Specifically, abortion is a sin. Any of them. Not a one. But we get the thou shalt not kill. And we have the extremist. Of course, there's an extremist in everything. But for the most part, we have those people that is why they have their religion. I mean, their opinion is based upon their religion, which is where they get their morality from. And with religion, you have values and beliefs. That is what morals means. Values and beliefs. What are your values and beliefs? You have to be able to logically think of something. You have to not take things so literal, especially from books that are thousands of years old, or supposedly thousands of years old. As it was said, there is no adequate basis for holding the fetus that has a significant right to life. First trimester. We're talking first trimester. Considered a fetus medically. Do I think it's a child? As a Christian, yes, I think it is a child. But do I think that a woman should have to be raped in a sex industry and to provide for herself or forced in the sex industry with sex trafficking and have to have a child that is not wanted or cannot be taken care of? Do I think a rape victim should have to carry a child for 40 weeks and know that half that child came from her rapist? Incest. That in itself is illegal, just as rape is. Should a woman have to have her father's child? Should a 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl, have to have the child of her father? The answer to that is no. That's the logic. That is where I find education comes in. Because I have found in my research that a lot of people vote on things that they're ignorant to, that their morals and values tell them, their religion tells them, no, you cannot do this. So instead of questioning it, instead of logically breaking it down, they just go with the flow. But then I found over 50% of Congress who have Republicans who are pro-life, don't necessarily believe in abortion or strict abortion laws where there is no gray area. They believe that there is some gray area. I want to say it's 56% of Congress believes that there is some point that you have to say, no, a woman should be able to choose. And I would think that that would be rape, incest. But then we have Alabama, who has changed or amended their policy for their state and put No abortion, period. Regardless. Regardless of if it's rape or incest. No abortion, period. In the year 2019. I feel like we're heading right back to the 1950s. In my research, I have found that religious affiliation, particularly Catholic versus non-Catholic, as well as the frequency of church attendance, are the most powerful predictors of attitude towards abortion. Meaning, the more religious one thinks they are, the more they oppose abortion. And this also, the control variables contain age, income, education, size of birthplace, meaning the size of where they live, small town versus city. Education plays a big part. It's important to understand that educating yourself against a policy, if you are going to vote for a candidate in politics for a political reason on policy, educate yourself. Educate yourself on that policy. Logically look at it. Don't think because I grew up, my mama always said abortion was wrong, then abortion is wrong. Educate yourself. It is so important to make sure that you understand a right, and you need to understand human rights, and that we must have policies regardless of what the policy is for. Society needs policy to keep chaos from occurring. We have to have structure in society, which is why we have policy. Politicians and judges who are elected, for the most part, they're appointed or elected, and if they're appointed by the person you voted for, governor, president. You need to make sure that you are voting for the person that truly is going to fight for another human's rights. Human rights are very important. In America, we are so advanced out of the world. We are a first world country. We are looked at a higher standard, and here we are in 2019 wanting to go backwards. There are countries, third world countries, that abortion is still illegal. Women cannot have them. They will be imprisoned or worse for having them. Those who usually support restrictions on abortion cite religious objections to it, such as having insurance, private insurance, pay for an abortion. I pay my premiums. I pay for that insurance. My insurance is not free. Some of them want to hold back and not allow you to have an abortion with your insurance to pay for it. And that is solely based on religious belief. We have so much. It amazes me how much we have to fight at this point. The most challenging questions for both political parties is the values of choice, rights of choice, or rights of life, pro-choice, pro-life. That to this day is still a hot topic, political question for candidates that are running for office. Does not matter what office, it is a question that's going to be asked. This question is a hot topic. They do not understand that until one educates oneself about the topic and stop allowing their religious beliefs into the picture and think of it logically, educationally, that we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to go backwards as we are in the year 2019. Public opinion correlates with policy law because it is the public that policy is determined by. It is us as the public who elect officials that go to the legislation and enact policy. Therefore, we're going to vote for those who think like us. And education plays a big part in that. People think that college, especially that college, is a waste of time, but it really isn't. It educates you and teaches you the tolerance of others and broadens your horizons and gives you a worldly view. And it's so important to understand and how to dissect something educationally, logically, in order for you to put somebody in a position that are going to speak for you. And public opinion, that's what it is. And in my paper, I write about data from a poll that states that only 3% of people knew about the issue and were educated about the issue. Other people just were there. 25% didn't know one way or the other, but they had an opinion on it, but they didn't know the facts. We don't want that in our judicial or political parties. We definitely don't. One of the other questions was my plans for graduation. I touched on that. It's to go to get my doctorate and hopefully teach. But I have found that the first thing I need to do is find a mentor, somebody who can help me through that, because I had nobody for grad school. And like I said, I'm much better with going to class. So that is basically the basis of my paper. My opinion's in the paper. That is me in a nutshell. And I have appreciated and learned a lot from this program. And I have appreciated and learned a lot from my professors, and I appreciate the feedback. And that's it. That's all I have. And I hope you have a great day.